News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris with you on a Thursday. Interesting topic this morning. We're going to be discussing the whole issue of education in the state. There's all kinds of things we can talk about underneath that umbrella, but we're going to talk about vouchers. This is something our new governor, Bill Lee, is very much behind. It's making its way through the legislature, and you may or may not have a clue what school vouchers are all about and what they may do for public schools, for private schools, and most importantly, what they do for families and their students. And there's some controversy over, whether that's the best way to spend public money in terms of vouchers and how it works. So as it's making its way through the legislature, it may or may not pass this time around. We thought we'd take a little closer look at it. If you're in a situation where you're dealing with it or have a thought, and most of you, maybe even if you don't have children in schools that would deal with this, I know are concerned with how money is spent and where it goes, and these are your tax dollars in large measure. You're welcome to call and ask a question. 737-7587 is the number. We're going to talk this morning with Beth Brown. She's the president of the Tennessee Education Association. Nice to see you, ma'am.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
That's good to have you on. I want to be clear early on that your organization is one that is not in favor of vouchers.
That is correct.
We're not here to do a point-counterpoint. We will likely do a program as well with those who support the voucher program, but I thought we'd have you on since we do see it making through the legislature. First, tell us about the association, who it is you represent.
Okay. So first of all, I'm a high school English teacher from Grundy County. The Tennessee Education Association is the largest professional organization in the state for educators.
It's not a union.
We are a professional association. Okay. Tennessee's a right-to-work state, so
Gotcha. All right, I see.
But we do represent educators and students and advocate every day for what's best for Tennessee's public schools.
Okay, how many members probably?
Well, our membership grows every day, actually.
Every day. Well, think about how many teachers and all that. All right, as far as the voucher program, and I can go over the basics of it if you've been paying attention to the news. I mean, there's been quite a bit lately on this. It's education savings accounts that essentially would give parents about $7,300 in public funds for use, if you'd like, on private schools or educational services, supplies like that. Aside from what's the public entity. If you would, your take on how you would best describe vouchers to someone. Without, the opinion that you're against it, we'll get into some of that, but how would you describe the voucher program? Is that pretty much it? Providing that money to individuals? You have to qualify.
So the program as it is proposed is awarding $7,300 on a debit card to families to use for education services. There are different things that might be authorized. There are a couple different versions of the House version of the bill and the Senate version of the bill have different approved expenses using these funds, but basically it's a debit card for families to use for education purposes.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think why someone would use this and how it works. And so again, I wasn't real schooled on all this myself, and my son is now out of school, but I pay attention because it's, again, an important thing in the state. All right, for instance, let's say I live in a neighborhood and I'm perhaps a lower income family, and for better or worse, the school that my son is in that district of is a lousy school. Poor performing, not good, don't like it, maybe seems a little dangerous to me. I'm like, gosh darn it, I have no choice. I live here, I've got to have my son go to this school. I'd love to go to that private school down the way, but I don't have the coin to go there. Mm-hmm. I apply, okay, I'm not a rich person. If I was rich, it wouldn't be a question, sending him to the private school. But I don't want to stay in this lousy school that's public, and there are some lousy ones, and I want to go to this private one that I think is better. I'm going to apply for this voucher, and this will give me an opportunity to send my son to a school that maybe some of the rich kids go to. All right, does that make sense? That sounds okay, right? Doesn't it?
In theory. There are some issues with that. So first of all, we have to understand that as this program is being considered, this idea that it is going to allow students who are living in poverty and in schools that aren't performing academically the way that people would like them to, that this is going to rescue them from that. But the actual tenets of the bill allow for a district like Metro Nashville Okay, so that is one of the districts outlined in the bill is qualifying for this program. In order to get that grant money, that ESA, a student doesn't actually have to attend a low-performing school.
Oh, right.
And also, the income requirements are double the federal poverty level. So it's a little disingenuous to say that this is designed to help students who are poor attend private schools. And then there's also the concern that $7,300 is not actually going to cover the costs of a private school education. There are a lot of other costs associated with that. So even if a low-income family qualified and wanted to spend that money somewhere else, they still probably wouldn't have what was going to be needed to pay for the private school, and so they're probably going to wind up staying in the public schools anyway. So what we're going to have is we're going to have resources that are being drained from the public school, and then the public school is still going to be serving the majority of Tennessee's students.
So you would say then why not, as opposed to, I think the total cost is some $75 million over the next 3 years, why not perhaps put that money toward improving that lousy school?
Well, but let's talk about the $75 million first. That's initially, but it's eventually going to cost about $200 million per year to fund this program in its current proposed
Do you think
state.
a lot of families will take advantage of it?
I don't know. I just feel like if we have schools that have needs as evidenced by their academic performance, let's start having real conversations about what it's going to take to improve those schools. And I just don't think that draining money from those schools is the answer. Let's talk about measures and investments that are going to lower class sizes so that students are having more one-on-one instruction. Let's talk about adding funds for increased mental health and physical health services within the school, because when we talk about schools that are underperforming, we're not actually getting down to the root of the problem. It's like we want to throw money and say, okay, go choose something else, you can get away from the school, but you're not really addressing the underlying issues. And so we have a student population that has changed significantly since I began my career as an educator 18 years ago. There are physical health issues that are manifesting themselves in the schools. There are mental health issues. There's a changing family dynamic. All of that comes through in the classroom. And so there are a lot of other factors that are impacting student learning that we're not really talking about. And then you also have to think about how schools are being identified as underperforming, and so you have to talk about standardized assessments and whether or not those are accurate reflections of student growth and student learning and what teachers are actually doing. And so you have to consider all of that. So I think if we're really serious about improving our schools, let's focus on what we know works and what educators know work.
I should say this too. There's some lousy private schools out there also. I wonder if you would think the issue of church and state separation has come up in terms of the funding as well. Some have said that the voucher program is just an effort to find a way to let some of the public money go to pay toward many of these private schools which are religious based. Do you think that's fair?
Well, what I've heard from some of the religious schools is that they have concerns about taking vouchers because that is going to give the government some say-so in what's happening in their schools. And that's, they have a right to have their private religious school and operate it the way they want. And so I definitely see their concerns. And so if a religious private school is not willing to do that, then they would not have to accept students with vouchers.
Go that rate as well. Listen, we'll take a break. We've got some phone lines lighting up. If you have a question or comment, I'm curious what you think too. 737-7587 on the issue of school vouchers, something the governor's behind. There certainly are those who oppose the idea. The bottom line on all of this with her, the governor, everyone else, hopefully, is to come up with what's best for students, all right, and what works and the best way to educate them. We'll take a break and be back and educate all of them is what I mean. With your phone calls right after this. Stay with us.